What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Homeless Landlord Podcast, episode number 6. I am your host, Manuk. This podcast is about me, a traveling landlord trying to get to every country in the world, and I'm currently coming to you from my 68th country, Sierra Leone, right in the heart of West Africa. And in this episode, I mostly want to talk to you about overlanding West Africa, which is by no measure easy. And it's something I don't recommend for everybody to do, but if you are a nomad traveler, I'm going to share all of my tips and experiences and things I've learned about myself so far. I would say I'm probably still going to overland for at least 6 more countries after Sierra Leone, which will be Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria. And the overlanding started in the Gambia. It started in Senegal, from Dakar to the Gambia, and it was one direct bus to get from. So no other. You're not switching transportations. But immediately I was off to the bus driver ditched me at the border. That kind of happened. We were at the border and everybody went into customs to handle their paperwork. If you're West African, you don't need visas to travel within countries. I think you just need your ID, and I do believe you need a passport that is from one of the countries in West Africa. But you don't need a visa. So for every other passenger that went into customs, it was a pretty quick process. But I was in there getting a visa. They have a visa on arrival in the Gambia. It costs $100 US. And hopefully the mic is doing okay here. I switched to my Rode mic because my other mic kind of got damaged while overlanding. So I'm in there getting my visa, and I am finished getting my visa, and I come out and the bus is gone. So it was dipped. So I asked an officer there, I was like, yo, bro, did you see a bus? And he's like, yeah, it's gone. I was like, oh, shit. All right, well, that's something we're going to have to deal with. He helped me out. There were some taxi drivers. And there's a ferry port that's approximately 30 minutes down the road from that border, so the bus wasn't going anywhere. But, the taxi driver drives me to the bus. And the whole way there, I'm actually kind of cracking up. And I get on the bus, and I'm flipping out on the dude. I'm like, what are you, an idiot? I'm sitting right here. I'm the only white guy on the bus. How do you miss me? How do you even... I'm flipping out, but it's controlled. It's controlled rage. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm actually calm. The reason why I don't care too much, even though this was my first experience overlanding, is because I'm in West Africa, and things are chaotic. That's the lifestyle out here. All things don't make sense. I'm not in the West anymore. I'm not in the U.S., and... I just blamed it. I don't know. I found it kind of funny more than anything, but you have to stand your ground, and it's an English-speaking country, so the dude understood every word I'm saying. I'm losing I'm just for no reason. I'm just losing my cool, and then I sit down. I put my headphones on. I'm cool, but 5 minutes later, 2 other dudes show up. They're Africans, so he left them at the border too. So now they're flipping out, and then I got to stand back up and defend them. So now we're all just yelling at the bus driver for leaving us at the border. So it is a bit odd, and I ended up realizing that it wasn't as personal as I first thought, because he also left 2 locals at the border. So the guy's he's just missing a couple of things upstairs. It's all good. But then I get to my place in the Gambia much later, because we had like a 3-hour wait for the ferry portal. I get to my place and there was no electricity, which is also common in West Africa. There are power outages commonly. I'm in a hotel now in Sierra Leone, and their power also goes out on occasion, but they have a generator here. Most of the hotels will have them. Power's out. It took 3 hours to come back on. I'm drained from a long day. Power comes back on. I'm happy. I go into the shower to take a shower. Water's not working. So now no electricity and no water for that evening. I ended up getting electricity and had a fan on for the night. All good. But then I switched hotels in the morning, and then that was a pretty like terrible way to terrible first impression on a country in a couple of ways, to get ditched at a customs. Like, first of all, if this was me 5 years ago, I'd be freaking out. I'd have no idea what to do. I would call my mom. I would call the president of the U.S. say, hi, President, and I would just cry to him. I would call I would call all the people, and I wouldn't know what to do. But yeah, you have to adapt as a traveler, and I think I've been kind of adapting here, especially here in West Africa. So yeah, so it was a terrible entry into a country, but then I turned out to love the Gambia. The Gambians love people; they're so friendly. The smiling coast of West Africa, as they say, and they really want Americans to invest in the Gambia. It's a very big thing. If you're American and you're in the Gambia, you'll see it. There are not too many. Again, there are just not that many Americans out here at all. Not too many travelers to begin with, but the ones that are, like white travelers, are European, French, German, Dutch, Swiss, Italian, British. The ones that travel well, they're the ones that are maybe doing this overlanding, or not even necessarily overlanding, just traveling within this part of the world, or people who are trying to check off every country. But the Gambia is great. The people are amazing. The sunsets are amazing. Oh my God, it's just beautiful. The beaches are stunning. The prettiest beaches I've seen so far in West Africa. Although I haven't been to Sierra Leone's beaches yet. I've heard they got some great beaches. I'm probably going to go tonight. So that was interesting. Interesting way to break into overlanding, and so that was my experience going from Senegal to the Gambia. So immediately I am expecting the worst, expecting the unexpected. Now I'm extra cautious at the borders, I had my phone and my passport with me, but I had 2 bags that were in the bus just gone. Either way, my passport and my phone are always on my body, no matter what, no matter where I am at all times. And I'm constantly just making sure I have it. Sometimes I check inside my socks to make sure it didn't fall in there. But I always have those 2 things. But yeah, it was insane. So that was kind of insane. I would say the next one was probably more insane. So the next one was from the Gambia to Guinea-Bissau. This was my first real overlanding experience, I think. This is where you take those crappy share taxis where you're stuffed in the back with 4 other people, and the cars are straight from junkyards, and you're going across dirt roads that are in really bad condition. So I believe this trip was, it was 3 total cars. I don't remember the exact cities, but if anybody's doing this trip and they need tips or they want me to send in the route, I can send it. Just send me a message on Instagram, Nuki Hove. But yeah, it was a long day. Lots of just terrible roads. Excuse me. And you're by the end of the day, you're just exhausted. You just need to drink enough water along the way and have just the slightest amount of food, and you'll be good. Like me personally, my appetite was pretty low for the most part, and that's because in the heat, a lot of people tend to not be as hungry, and I think I definitely fall into that category, especially when you're tired and all the elements are there. So from Gambia to Bissau, did anything specific? No, I don't remember anything specific happening on that trip other than it just being very long and exhausting. And then in Bissau, there's nothing going on. So they do have an archipelago of I have to have 88 islands, I think, that you can visit. But once again, similar to Cape Verde, my schedule did not line up with the schedules to go to the islands, so I skipped those. But to be honest, Guinea-Bissau is not a country that's high on my priority list. So I don't have to go to the top thing in every country just for a country that's not on my priority list. No offense to Guinea-Bissau, but just traveling across like this, you're going to be in some countries that you don't really care for. It's not really a tourist country, and there's not really much to do. So I stayed in the city of Bissau, and I can't even tell you what I did. You can go look at my Instagram stories, my highlights, but it's. And another interesting thing, by the way, sorry, this water is just deep in my mustache right now from that. Maybe I could try to fan it from my bottom lip. I can cup it upwards. That kind of worked. The thing about overlanding West Africa is it's very interesting because a lot of these countries speak different languages, which to me is bizarre, but also they were all just colonized by different countries. So, Senegal is French. I'm just going to go in order geographically. Senegal is French, Gambia is English, Guinea-Bissau is Portuguese, Bissau is French, Sierra Leone is English, Liberia is English, Cote d'Ivoire is French, Ghana is English, Togo, Benin, I think are French, Nigeria is English. So, yeah, so it's. I'm happy to be in an English-speaking country now, but it's interesting. They're all colonized by different countries at certain points, and Guinea-Bissau was a Portuguese country, Portuguese territory at one point. So Portuguese is the dominant language, and of course they all still have their native languages. Wolof is, I know, one of the more common ones. I don't know off the top of my head the name of the other ones, but people. I think people primarily speak the native language, but they also know those languages. So if I start speaking English in Sierra Leone, they're going to speak English. So yeah. So okay. So Bissau is Bissau, and then from Bissau to Guinea-Conakry was absolutely insane. So that trip was the most insane single commute of my life, going from point A to B ever. With that said, I kind of feel like I paid for an experience. So that one was a bus and then a dirt bike and then a shared taxi. So the bus was cool. You take a big bus, you go, I think it was like 6 hours. And then there's a stretch of road that crosses in from the country to the other country, from Guinea-Bissau into Guinea. That is not exactly a road. It's more like, it's actually, so there's a portion of it which is like actually just for dirt bikes. So it was a probably 4.5 hours on the bike itself, maybe 5.5, 6 hours total for the journey with stoppage. And it was insane. Like there were certain parts of that ride is just so bumpy, which is cool, but you got 2 suitcases on there as well that they've strapped up, and you're going for 6 hours after already a 6-hour bus ride, and then you got another 6-hour ride after that. It was insane. It's just the roads were nuts, and you're just doing your best to not have pain in your back and your neck, and you're trying to like readjust yourself, and your ass is up your neck, and it's just it's bizarre. It's just insanity. But it was an experience, and even at one point throughout that dirt bike trip, we had to cross a river. So there's a little boat. So they put the bike on the boat, and then we go across the river. Probably only 5 minutes across, but the boat definitely had a leak. And they just scoop the water out once they reach the other side of the boat, and they come back. Yeah, it was just insane. And then the third ride was a shared taxi. Again, I don't think not too much into there, but I did run out of cash between the dirt bike and the shared taxi. The reason I ran out of cash is because that dirt bike was a lot more expensive than I thought. And I negotiated, but it was pricey. But the price makes sense. It's justified because it's not shared anything. It's not a shared bus, not a shared taxi. It's one dude on a dirt bike taking you on a road, and there's no other way to get there. There's no other way to get there if you're taking an entirely different itinerary. But going this way, which can be done in one day, which I also don't necessarily advise, took me 18 hours. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I got there at 10. 5 to 5 is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 17 hours. But I mean, it was closer to 18. It was like 10:30. But in any event, it's an insane trip to do in one day. Most don't recommend to do it in one day, but luckily we didn't run into too many delays. Like there were some times where there were some control delays, like the driver was taking a break that was a little long, or we were at the board. But there were no complications throughout this entire trip that caused any delays. Therefore, those 3 trips, the 3 individual modes of transport that each took 6 hours apiece, and we got there in 18 hours, was actually not terrible. Because in my head, I said, all right, if I get there by midnight, I'm happy. And I got there by 10:30. So I ran out of cash between a dirt bike and a shared taxi, and then now I'm at this shared taxi depot, just like now I'm like trying to convince these people, like, yo, I got the money. There was an ATM in that city. ATM was broken. I couldn't access cash. Nobody wanted to take me. So I kept showing them my credit cards and my debit card and saying, look, I'm American. I got the cash. Not a problem. I will pay you when we get there to the city. Point my way to an ATM, and I will pay you. And it took a lot of convincing. And now that I look back at it in hindsight, it makes sense that they didn't want to trust it because they have a system, right? It doesn't matter if I'm American. They have a system. You arrive to the bus depot or the taxi depot. You tell them where you're going. They point you to a car. And when that car fills up, they leave, and you pay for the ticket up front. You don't just say, I got you when I get there. So So yeah, so for me to think that I'm owed something is not the right, and that's not necessarily what I thought. But again, it took so much convincing that it got to a point where I was like, "Come on, guys! Like this is insane!" Like like so yeah. But we made it happen. I ultimately I had to offer them double to get, and by the way, double is $15 US. I think it's like $8 to go 6 7 hours in a car to like hundreds of kilometers away. I think that's a pretty good price. So, but luckily the guy, I finally was able to convince him on. His eyes lit up when he heard double. He was happy to do it. We got to the ATM. Luckily that ATM worked in Conakry, and then I spent a couple days in Conakry. Conakry was cool. Conakry is chaotic. It's a different type of chaos. I don't think it's as safe as some of the other countries down here, but I didn't feel unsafe. I haven't really been feeling unsafe at all. Which, by the way, is what's mostly keeping me calm, and it's keeping me. It's actually helping me to enjoy the experience, because if people were not friendly out here, I would probably be more towards leaning. I'd be leaning towards tapping out because it's so chaotic. But for the most part, people have good intentions, and for the most part, people will help you when you need help getting from one place to another, or if you need, if I'm looking for, hey, I need to print my visa, like people will walk you to the place to print your visa. And they're very they work as a community, and it's safe because from what I understand, if things are happening in public, somebody will step up and try to stop it. Most of the time, again, this is just the general community and society that I'm learning about here in West Africa. Something that we necessarily don't have in the U.S. We have it, but it's not widespread. You're not going to find that in New York, Philly, Baltimore, D.C., Detroit. In the big cities, you're probably not going to. That's not your experience. Something happens in public, people either ignore it or people don't know what to do. Unless it's something very serious, then people will help out. And then when you go into like the more sparse and spread out areas like the Midwest and the West and the South, people probably tend to be a little bit more. So it's regional, but here it's just everywhere you go. People are keeping an eye on each other. But again, this is just generally speaking. There are people with bad intentions. I just have not run into them yet. There are people that see you as an American and the first thing they think of is money. You have to be very careful of that. You can't really blame them. This is the world they know, and they're desperate. They're doing whatever they can to survive. So you have to not reject it. You have to accept it, and you have to just have to learn how to navigate it. My way of dealing with it. So generally speaking, most of the time I walk around with headphones, noise canceling headphones. I have my sunglasses on because it's always sunny, and I actually have my mask on because it's there's a lot of pollution out here because the cars, a lot of old cars, and you see a lot of trash in the streets. So for me, I'm already naturally fully covered, not with that intent, but it does help for me to be able to ignore people when needed. I don't want to ignore people. Usually, honestly, a lot of times when people are looking at you or grinning, you just give them a nod or you say hi or you smile at them. They smile back. These are most of the time they're just curious because they don't see somebody like you. So they find out you're American. A lot of times they like you more. Now, whether they like you more because they think you have money, or whether they like you more because genuinely like you more, that's up to you to decipher. But either way, it's not. I don't look at it as a negative thing. It's flattering sometimes, and it does make you feel a little special. It does. It does feed your ego, but overall the people are they're just so warm and accepting of people from the outside that it does help you when everything seems to be going sideways, especially with these overlanding trips. Which brings me into my third one, which was Conakry to Sierra Leone. So Conakry to Sierra Leone happened last night, and it was just so that trip is a one share taxi. You're not switching vehicles, and it's supposed to be approximately 7 to 8 hours. So a few hours into the trip, we got a flat tire. No big deal. I was actually super shocked that it took that long for me to experience a flat tire because you have to see these cars, you have to see these roads. So the fact that it took me like 4 countries to get a flat tire was kind of a shocker. And it happened. I was like, oh, cool. Now I can help change a tire. That was kind of fun. It took about an hour and a half maybe. And then we get to the border between Guinea and Sierra Leone, and the driver's paperwork is expired. So that was about a 2-hour delay. Now, I don't know how common that is, but like, bro, have your papers. Like, come on. Like, people are paying, and you're gonna. It kind of ticked me off a little bit, like inside. Again, very controlled, but I was like, bro. So then we get into the customs part of we're passing into Sierra Leone, and then that's where I come in. My visa was not accepted. It wasn't exactly a visa. It was an email I got that said your visa application has been approved. Apparently, you're supposed to get a letter after that, which makes sense because usually when you get a visa, like I got the email that my visa application was approved, and I clicked on the thing and I clicked on the link and the details, and there was no documentation. There was nothing I can click on and print. Whereas in every other case that I've applied for a visa and got approved, you can click something and print it. So I was already a little bit on alert for that. And then when I get to the border, there's no evidence of the visa. Now, before you think that I applied to like a scam visa, it's not the case. This was directly from I believe it was actually on the U.S. Department of State website, which connects you to the right links. And it's also an official Sierra Leone website. It ends in it's a .gov.sl. .sl is a Sierra Leone, and there's a .gov in it. So it's definitely the official Sierra Leone visa, and it's the first result you get when you Google search. So like I've researched it, but I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know if there was a glitch, but because I was trying to convince them that I did the visa, I have it, and I just got nowhere. And I didn't even realize I actually did not even pay for the visa online. So ultimately, they were actually right, but I don't know what happened. I don't know how I screwed that up. Usually I'm a lot more careful, but most likely I was at fault. Now that when I look back on it, most likely I was at fault because, like in my eyes, I thought I did. I mean, I don't even think I'm at fault. There was just something just didn't send, and for whatever reason, that was a 2-hour delay. So by the time we get to, oh, and by the way, because I didn't have the visa online and I had to pay at the border, now I had to use all my cash. So once again, I ran out of cash. That was a lot of fun. And luckily there was a dude on the taxi car, on the taxi rider with me. His name is Prince. Shout out Prince if you're listening. He is a Sierra Leonean American citizen, and he was coming back to visit his family. And luckily he had some extra cash to help me out because I didn't have enough cash for the visa. So point of the story is I ran out of cash, and then by the time we get to the city, once again, I don't have a taxi to get to my hotel, and now I got to try to navigate through that. And yeah, but ultimately I get to the hotel, and here I am in Sierra Leone, and I'm here for 5 days. 5 nights, yeah. And it's because I just need a hotel. I need somewhere where I got some good, strong Wi-Fi, that I got a gym, I could relax, I could work out, I could just chill, and the beach isn't far. So, yeah, I think my body just needs to chill out for a little bit. It's been a crazy week. I haven't been eating as much because my appetite hasn't been there, and sometimes it's been difficult to access food based on many circumstances. But I've been drinking a ton of water, and I've been staying very positive, and I think it's been natural. I've adapted to this lifestyle, and now I'm used to the chaos, and I kind of like it. I do, but it's the overlanding part of it that can get challenging. If I'm only staying in each country for 2-3 days and I'm doing this crazy travel every 2 to 3 days, it's killing my body. So 5 days in Sierra Leone is going to be enough for me to recover, and then head to Monrovia, Monrovia is Liberia, which is like an 8-hour drive before stoppage. And I don't know what the overlanding process is yet for Liberia. I'm going to go get my visa this week and then go into Liberia. Liberia is an interesting country. There are lots of American similarities because they have a history where, so I know the flag is similar. They use the U.S. dollar. They use the imperial system, one of only 3 countries in the world, the other being U.S. and the other being Myanmar. Don't know why. So let me see if I covered most of the things about overlanding. I think I did. Yeah, I mean, look, my biggest takeaway is if you're planning on doing something this crazy, so the alternate way to do it is to fly into every country. 10 times more expensive. These rides are costing anywhere from $15 to like $50 US, depending on how many you're taking, how many vehicles. If you're gonna fly, it's gonna cost anywhere from $300 to $500-600 one way. they just don't have the infrastructure for good direct flights here in Africa. And yeah, most nomad travelers are not going to fly, but if you want to avoid all of this chaos, that's the way to do it. If you are somebody who has, if you're somebody who can adapt and you know your limits. If you think you can handle it, you should do it. It's an experience. I've come to enjoy it. The only thing that gets me sometimes is you do get tired from it. So like I've been taking naps in these rides. Like I've been able to fall asleep here and there, and then when I get to the hotel, or Airbnb, I get a lot of sleep. But it does get exhausting. And a couple of things to keep in mind is do not get offended at all if people are approaching you a lot, or because like again, most people are just curious. If also another thing I've learned is don't over negotiate. And what I mean by that is I understand I'm American and my American dollar goes very far. I'm talking probably 5x. So if something's $1 here, it's 5 in the US. If something's $10 here, it's 50 in the US. It's not exact. That's nowhere near the case all the time, but at least for like food and transportation, hotels and lodging, like if you're doing budget stuff, if you're doing like really good hotels, even really good hotels are going to be a little bit cheaper, but my money goes far and I'm all for negotiating, and I do like negotiating and I do negotiate, but my intent is never to get every single dollar. In fact, if anything, I like contributing because I know my dollar goes far here and people need it. So don't ever try to get every money out of people, depending on where you're at in the world, especially here in West Africa. It's not good. Now, if somebody is trying to take advantage, and once again, that's up to you to decipher, that's a different story. I don't like it. Obviously, I'm not a fan of people taking advantage, which does happen. They see you're American, or they see that you're light-skinned. That is something that they automatically assume. But even when they're trying to take advantage, I don't necessarily get offended depending on which way the conversation goes. I try to just look at it as if these people need it. They need it to survive. They see an opportunity and they're trying to capitalize on it. Okay, I'm not going to allow them, and that's it. But never lose your cool when negotiating. Never take offense, and not even just with negotiating. Again, with people like walking up to you and people, that will happen a lot. A lot of times that's just the way it is. A lot of times it's because they're curious, and sometimes it's because they think there's an opportunity to somehow get money. So you definitely have to adapt to that, but it's just a way of life. We're not like that happens in other parts of the world too, but typically I've experienced that from people who are homeless or people who are selling stuff. Here it seems to be from also others. I don't know. Like I've had people approach me that are not homeless. I'm pretty sure they're not, and who don't seem to be selling anything. But in certain cases, I've ignored them, so I don't know what they're, because I've had the whole thing on. But again, it all depends. Like I love talking to people, talking to the locals, mingling with people. And again, most people are very friendly and invite that opportunity as long as I'm able to speak the language. So Sierra Leone, I plan to talk to many people because we share the same language. And I'm looking forward to staying here for 5 days and kind of recovering a little bit. Let me once again double check, triple check, quadruple check. I got my flash on, so my eyes are a little blinded. Bus driver left me at the border. What a dick. Yeah, I covered that. So I think that's all I got. Overlanding it's insane in this part of the world, but it can also be an experience. So if you take it for what it is, if you can get used to the language barriers, the police checkpoints, the crazy roads, the hot weather, being in a tight area, the delays, car breakdowns, if you can get used to all that, it's great. So I'm looking forward to the next one. I just need a few days before I can do it. So I think that's all I got for now. If you need more like specific tips on overlanding, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Nukeyhove, Nukeyhov. If you like this podcast, please like it. Please subscribe to it. Please give it a 5-star rating on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. If it's on YouTube, you can just do the other stuff. Tell your friends about it, and I will see you next time.